this is Dread from Epic Builds, and in today's video topic, we will go over Poison Umbral Blades, which has been highly requested from you guys, yourself, the viewers, so I finally decided to play it. Before we get into the video, if you've been enjoying the steady flow of Last Epoch content, I'd suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, as that's the best way to currently support the channel. So the main reason I'm playing this version is because of Emerald Cutlass. If you don't know, it makes it so all of our bleed chance is converted into poison chance for our Umbral Blades, which means we can abuse sources of bleed chance like puncture, and we can also utilize a dual sword setup, as that is much stronger than a dual wield dagger for a few reasons. The first reason is the insane amount of dodge percentage that swords can have on their suffixes. We gain a lot of dust shrouds with this build, leading to a large amount of flat dodge, which then gets multiplied by our dodge percentage chance on our sword suffixes, giving us a large amount of dodge chance to make us feel much tankier in most situations. The second reason is the note on the top of Blade Dancer, Weapons of Choice, which gives us a staggering 40% glancing blow chance when dual wielding swords. This means with a little bit of dust shrouds, we're already capped on glancing blow, and both of these reasons are why dual wielding katanas are superior than dual wielding daggers. So Emerald Cutlass does have some use after all. We're also going Explosion Umbral Blades, as the base Umbral Blades leaves a lot to be desired. We do not take the singular blade throne node as a poison build. We gain a lot more damage by stacking a lot of small poisons than a few big ones, as the shred gets insane when we are applying 18 poisons at once instead of like 14. The little explosions all multiply together to equal insane amounts of poison DPS, as Blade Dancer is known for. And thanks for all of our defenses, we can actually face tank most of the empowered monolith bosses and Orbis as well. Of course, since we are a Blade Dancer that is relying on glancing blow and dodge at the same time, it means we are much worse in fights like T4 Jurla, because the void beams don't care about either of our main defensive layers, so I'd heavily suggest a different build for dungeon farming. One thing you must be thinking, Dread, why do we run a melee attack, Puncture, to buff our poison chance? Wouldn't it be slow and awkward? Well, running double katanas and all of the Blade Dancer's attack speed support is global attack speed, and with some changes, meaning that we actually have close to 80% attack speed with Puncture, meaning that we can weave it into attacks, allowing us to benefit from all the extra poison chance and attack speed. And of course, as a Blade Dancer, we're able to invest into a Salt the Wound setup, as having all that crit multi means that we get up to close, I think, like 50% poison effect. And if you don't know, that's actually a lot of poison effect, because that applies to the base poison damage and also the poison shred. One thing to note as well, since with the legendary system, we can get throwing attack speed on our gloves, specifically on our Salt the Wounds, so that's definitely a legendary that you should be looking for that I don't have currently. But yeah, with all that being said, let's get into the video, shall we? Alright, here we are in game with the build. So the general rotation in monoliths is just simply kind of weave in a puncture every so often. As you can tell, we have pretty fast attack speed, meaning that when we're in monoliths and stuff, we don't have to worry about, us being animation locked for too long. And of course, throughout some Umbral Blades and stuff, and as you can tell, they do pretty decent AoE. Now, they have less AoE when they're actually triggered instantly, and it's a kind of okay, because if it means that they're instantly triggered, it means they're right on top of mobs, which means we don't need the extra AoE. Now, for single target situations, it's a little different. What you want to do is get up to 6 stacks of Bleeding Flurry, which gives you a bunch of poison chance for your Umbral Blades, like I explained in the intro. And of course, put down a Dust Shroud, and of course that will give us a bunch of Dust Shrouds, which will give us more damage, and as you can tell, the damage goes crazy. I saw like 3,700,000 there. This is ridiculous, obviously. So yeah, Poison Umbral Blades, turns out it's pretty good, turns out. It's really tanky too. So let's get into skills. So for Umbral Blades itself, we take 2 points travel to cut and leave. The bleed chance helps us because it gets turned into poison chance. The haste chance on recall doesn't matter because recall is a bad mechanic and we try to ignore it with this build. 1 point to Emerald Cutlass. This makes it so all bleed chance from all sources all give us poison chance instead, which is actually really really nice. The explosions deal less damage. That doesn't matter because we don't really care, right? Then, of course, explosion chance is like 100%. We actually get more poison chance as well. It's like really nice from just one note here. 1 point travel into jagged carvings. The flat doesn't matter to us. 1 point to Twilight Assault. Since we're not recalling, what happens is we rotate between three. The reason why we like Twilight Call is because it gives us a bunch of blades on the third call. This gives us more blades per second because the third throws gives us 5 blades, and that benefits our throwing attack speed. So the faster we throwing attack, the faster we rotate to 5 blades per, which means multiplicatively more damage. So attack speed is very phenomenal with this build because of that node. Because normally nodes like this will be like every 3 seconds, right? Like for instance, this node here, it's like every 2 seconds you have an extra throw, which doesn't necessarily scale with attack speed, but this does. So that's why this is so strong. And of course, 1 point here, so you throw an additional blade. So we're at 6 blades per throw. All the little extra blades matter because more poisons on the enemy means the poisons we apply afterwards will deal more damage. Then 3 out of 4 points in Dawnfall. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this. So the way it works is if I throw out an Umbral Blade and multiple blades hit, that would mean that you would get the Dust Shroud. The chance at least hit one enemy, I believe, will get like 1 Dust Shroud most of the time. But you could always mess around and play with 4 points. If you have +1 to Umbral Blades, you could put 4 in here instead. Then 1 point into Precision Cuts makes it so we throw it at a target location. Then 1 point into Explosive Blades, and then 4 points into Burst of Agony. Pretty much what this means is whenever we throw the blades, they stay on the ground and they explode instead of having to recall them, because recalling is a bad mechanic. So the explosions obviously have really good AoE, even when they're in their smaller forms. The way this node works specifically is it gives you more explosion area per second on the ground and more damage. Now, since the arming time of the blades is 0.5 seconds, right? We'll actually get 40% more AoE and 40% more damage at the very least. And that's if they're not triggered instantly by mobs, and they'll be triggered when they move towards them, kind of like traps from PoE. So we actually have a trapper in the game now, quote unquote. 4 points into Edge of Obscurity just gives us damage per Dust Shroud. This is the reason why we're doing so much damage, because we get a bunch of Dust Shrouds. I can show you here when we're just on a target here. We just get a bunch of Dust Shrouds and we get 8% more damage per Dust Shroud, which is absolutely nuts, obviously. So really good here. And then of course it's doubled inside of a smoke bomb, which is one of our main sources of Dust Shrouds, so a lot of synergy there. Then 1 point to Umbral Blade. This makes it so whenever one of your shadows expire, they also leave an Umbral Blade. This is mainly so that when we throw down our smoke bomb, it will create shadows, which will leave down Umbral Blades as well. So if you're on top of the target, you can actually kind of like, what would you call it? Try to kind of like shotgun the shadows and stuff. It just gives us a little bit more area clear as well, just having extra damage with shadows. This is not really that important technically, but it's like fine. And that's pretty much it for Umbral Blades. For Smoke Bomb, it's your stereotypical Smoke Bomb setup. There's not really much different here because it already benefits from everything that we wanted Smoke Bomb to do in the first place. Like, for instance, the Dust Shroud stuff. So we get a bunch of Dust Shrouds, the duration so it lasts longer, the shadows for the extra Umbral Blades, and of course 1 point in the Moonlight Bomb for the Silver Shroud. This helps in boss fights, so we actually don't take a lot of hits. And none of the other stuff really helps us out, so that's why it's specifically like this. Puncture, this is your stereotypical puncture setup, not really much different here. We like the frenzy, so we can attack faster. The throwing attacks, this is global attack speed, so this applies to our throwing attack speed too, which is really strong. And of course, 4 points of bloodthirst and hunger. We get a bunch of bleed chance, as you can tell here. So we're at 152, and at max sax, we're at 512. So we get about like, I think it's like 350% chance to bleed, which then gets turned into poison. And of course, poison chance is better than bleed chance as base because of the poison shred. So the more poisons we get, the better. Hence why this build even works in the first place, right? Because bleed chance is much more available thanks to puncture because of the global bleed chance, which then gets converted into poison chance for Emerald Cutlass. And of course, 4 points of Mind Piercer. This doesn't really matter. Obviously, like, you know, like if we're throwing out stuff, like we need the mana. But since Umbral Blades is 0 mana, we don't really care. Then 4 points to an infectious toxin. This just makes it so there's a chance to make enemies take 10% increased damage over time, which of course is a 10% more damage modifier, so why not? And nothing else on the tree really helps us at all. Then shift here is a little different than your stereotypical shift tree. Mainly we went for the coal because we have no source of coal otherwise. And of course went for the acid flask stuff because I'm utilizing the elixir of speed so that we gain haste whenever we acid flask to make our monolith progression a little bit faster. And of course that's really it for like shift. It's like pretty stereotypical shift setup. Of course, we have the shadow so that we can throw extra umbral blades as well. It's just a bunch of random stuff. Like shift isn't that important. It's just mainly just so that we can move faster through monoliths and stuff. And the acid flask is really strong because when we do shift, we create 2 acid flask pools here, as you can tell. And while we're standing in them, we actually get 100% global poison chance, which is a lot of poison chance. If you don't know, like I said, poison chance is really strong. So having the more of it, the better, right? In the last few seconds too, and of course to get the haste, so there's kind of like a dual kind of rotation there. That's pretty much it for the skills. Now for the passives here, 8 points into Swift Assassin. This is global attack speed. This applies to our throwing and our melee attacks, so it's really good for us. 1 point travel into Steady Hand, 1 point travel into Guile, 5 points into Evasion. This makes it so when we're stutter stepping, like I'm showing you here, we have a 50% chance to take 25% less damage, which is obviously really strong because 50% of the time we're moving, 50% of the time we're not. Then of course the increased dodge rating is very strong. Then 1 point into Twin Blade so we can dual wield, 8 points into Duelist. The increased dodge is really strong, like I said, because of the Dust Shroud stuff, which I can show you here. If you look at our dodge here, we have really low dodge, but then as I gain Dust Shrouds here, we climb up and dodge really quickly, all the way up to 50%. Just from having like 4 dust shrouds, and we can get way more when we get hit and stuff. So obviously dodge percentage really good for us. Then 4 points of the sapping strikes to make it so we gain health whenever we use our umbral blades, so we just get a little bit of that upfront healing. I'm not entirely sure this is important. One thing you could do is go for disembowel. I'm not entirely sure if all 5 blades on the 3rd attack would get the bleeding. I'm not entirely sure on this, like, at all. But like obviously, you know, this might work. I haven't tested it properly. It's just really hard to tell because we already have so much poison chance and stuff. It's just really hard to tell. Then for marksman here, we do a little bit of shenaniganry here. We take 8 points into focus fire. The dexterity is really nice because the flat dodge is always good and increased damage is always good. 1 point travel into missile mastery, 1 point travel into concentration, 5 points into prolonged demise. This is just travel, although the negative damage over time taken is nice. Then 8 points to mediation. We like mediation because we are running a bunch of percentage dodge, which gives us a decent amount of dodge chunk in the beginning so that we can scale it even further, and there's not that many other points thanks to us being a throwing attack that really matter for us at the top of the tree here for Blade Dancer, so it's better just to spend them here. Then 8 points into Cloak and Shadow for the dex and the glancing blow, 8 points into Shroud of Dust for the chance to gain Dust Shroud when hit. This happens all the time. We get plenty of dodge chance from this. The more things hit us, the more Dust Shrouds we get. The more Dust Shrouds we get, the harder it is for things to hit us and the less hard they hit us for. So obviously really strong. 5 points into Pursuit for the movement speed because movement speed's nice. 10 points into Blood Serpent's Blade. It gives us bleed chance because we're dual wielding swords, which doesn't matter because we're dual wielding swords and we're using Emerald Cutlass. 8 points into Scarlet Stream, just extra throwing bleed chance, which is turned into poison chance. Then 5 points into Flash of Steel for the throwing attack speed and the melee attack speed as well. Then 8 points into Weapons of Choice, which gives us the glancing blow, 2 swords. As you can tell right now, we're at like, what is it? 56% chance of glancing blow, which is a lot. And then as we gain Dust Shrouds here, we quickly get up to 100% chance. So that right here is plenty to help us get up to 100% chance for glancing blow. Then 8 points to Death's Door. This has saved me so many times because having that extra DR while life is really strong and it's multiplicative with your endurance. So everything about it is just really strong. It's just really good. And then for gearing here, so I do have a Bleeding Heart, mainly the damage over time and the Ellie res matters, but obviously these are just stats that you can replace for other stuff later on. Having a bleeding heart's really strong though because it's a low level LP unique, meaning that you can easily get LP on it and throw some resistance on it, throw some damage on it. So, and of course the leech is insane with dots, as you know, because each tick of dot gives you a leech stack instead of just being all at once like with the crit build. So that's really nice. Then for the helmet, this helmet's absolute freaking garbage, man. You could probably get way better than this. I would assume you'd want vitality, poison duration, HP, endurance, and then probably sealed at HP. Umbral Visage is really good though. Crit multi is really good for us. Then for our chest here, I actually sealed away the poison res. If you don't know, sealing away items is a little bit easier than using like a rune of removal when you go in to get rid of an item because it's easier, it's cheaper, and doesn't cost as much forging potential, which is really nice. Then of course HP, throwing attack speed, vitality. Obviously you wouldn't have this chest because the HP is really high, but like obviously the throwing attack speed is the most important thing because since we're running a salt the wounds, our throwing attack speed is a little lackluster because throwing attack speed is mainly on the gloves and the rings. As until I have it on the gloves and the rings, I don't have it on the glove because obviously I can't run it there because you know it obviously if you can get LP salt the wound, throwing attack speed would be insane. Uh, but Acid Flask still remains to be the best slot because the throwing attack speed implicit is really strong for builds like this that need that throwing attack speed. Then for the, I'm not going to show this katana, I'm going to show this katana because this is literally the perfect katana. I am so sad I didn't get to Rune of Creation this because this is insane. The poison damage, obviously, increased damage you want as much as possible. You want it on a katana because the crit multi prefix, obviously, what tier 5 does. And then for a what do you call it? For a sealed, you want to seal probably bleed chance and then have poison chance and dodge rating. That's what I would seal, try to seal. Obviously, you could try to seal like percentage damage as well, but it doesn't really matter. And of course, the percentage dodge, as you can tell, is T7 dodge rating, 130% dodge. That is a lot of dodge percentage, as you can tell. And one of the main reasons when I do this, I get a crud ton of dodge. So look at that! Look at that dodge! Look at that! It's insane, isn't it? Obviously, I wish out of Rune of Creation this build would have been even crazier, but I was not that lucky. And of course, poison on hit, and you can always go bleed on hit as well because it gets treated as poison on hit for our Umbral Blades. And of course, the other thing on the other side doesn't really matter. Ring here, throwing attack speed, damage over time, minus throwing attack speed. This is like your perfect ring because you want minus throwing attack speed. You only need one though because it's 3 mana cost, so you only need 1 -3, and the other could be like damage over time, dexterity, whatever else you can manage on it. Of course, resistance, crit avoid, endurance, you know, the usual fanfare. For the belt, poison percentage, cleanse, HP. LP Thorn Slinger would be very good for this build with like HP on it because it has bleed on hit and it has +1 to fizz skills, which is your Umbral Blades and all that. So this would definitely be something looking for LP and slamming HP on it. Then of course, gloves, salt the wounds. I can show you why salt the wounds is strong. Look at my poison damage, 237. 129 literally doubles my poison damage, and this is actually lying to you because it's not taking into account the poison shred that gets affected by the poison effect, which then double dips, and then of course we get a lot more damage than just what you're seeing here. Look at my bleed though. God, that's disgusting. And of course boots with as much HP, crit avoid, HP, like it is like your stereotypical boot setup. Then here, I got really lucky on this one. Got some resistances, some damage over time and stuff. Not really much different here. You can either use the bleed chance base for fire res, or you can use the poison on hit base as well, because both of them work for you. Which is one of the cool things about this build is all of your gear is very easily slotted in because like you can use the bleed chance base, you can use the poison base. Doesn't really matter. You can have poison on hit, you got a bleed on hit. It doesn't really matter what you have as long as you have it, right? Then for the idols, we obviously want the crit multi while dual wielding. One of the main problems of Salt the Wound with poison effectiveness stacking is we require a lot of crit multi to make it work. As you can tell, I have 471% crit multi, and that is thanks to these and the katanas here. So 18 crit multi while dual wielding. This dodge, if hit recently, this is insane. This is your perfect idle, because with all that percentage dodge that we have, I think I have one here. With all that percentage dodge that we have, it means that whenever we get hit at least once, and even if we trigger like a dust shroud, we'll jump up to like 50% dodge, which is like pretty damn good. Of course, crit multi-dual dual wielding. Then, of course, bleed chance per equipped sword. This is really strong because it gives us a lot of bleed chance because we have swords. And of course, dodge if hit recently. Of course, this is a really strong mod for this kind of build that stacks so much dodge percentage. Of course, I have resistance idols. You don't need these. My resistances are all out of whack. I don't have perfect gear, obviously. No one has perfect gear. So for some people, we won't get into that. But yeah, with all that being said, I think that's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you're at, and bye.